Welcome to Telco Bridge's ProSBC TechTraining Module 265, covering the RESTful API, most commonly used to remotely manage and provision ProSBC. So let's take a listen.
All set. Let's continue. RESTful API. Woo, that's short. So the reason we did this initially was for automation of configuration. All right. So we had a customer in France actually, they deployed hundreds of those devices, so they wanted to configure them all. And this was done over PPPoE, so smaller systems that would connect over Ethernet, point-to-point over Ethernet. And then we kept it, right? So it followed on to the SBC. So you can still use it today, either to configure large number of units or just to integrate it with the management system, right? So that when you change something at some place, it's just going to send it to the SBC so that it's in sync. So our RESTful API is using JSON over HTTP. Okay. The reason we chose JSON is because it's a recursive notation, which is exactly how it's done in our database, right? Everything is recursive, and it's fairly easy to read. It's readable. It's not a binary file. It's really a text file. Our web portal is using HTML over HTTP, so it's using the same interface to communicate to the system. It's just using another format. Okay. So a JSON file looks like this. So I just went on the system. I did one of the commands to get to dump the JSON file. So a good way to know what's the configuration is to get on a configuration system that is already working and just say dump me the configuration with the RESTful API, and then you'll get a file like this. So it's accolades like this. It's quotes, column, commas, and all the information for all the elements in the system. So it's fairly easy to manipulate once you have it like that. Okay. So some of these information, well, this one would be modifiable. Okay, some of them maybe are not modifiable. So if they're not modifiable and you're trying to push the configuration to the web portal, it's going to refuse. Right? It still will validate everything that you push in the system. So the way it works is just like RESTful. So then you go with resources, collections and resources. And then you can access each of the elements. So if you go higher, then you can get all the rest of the resource, but you can get to a very specific resource and change only that one. The commands you can do is either get, post, put, or delete. So get a list of collection, get the content of just one resource. You can get the default content of a new resource. So if you don't have already a system that you can get the data from, you can still say, okay, just create me a new, and I'll know what is the format of that resource. Then you can do create a new resource, update an existing resource, or delete one of them. Okay, so you can implement all of this in a script, right? So examples more specific to the SBC, you have configurations, and then you can choose a specific configuration. So this is a name that is configured. It's always the same name in the SBC. This is the name that you have configured when you added a new configuration. This is a name that's always there in the system, and this is the specific NAT name that you created. Okay. I have a sample code I will show you right after. So it's a nice little script that you can use as a reference to create or to use the REST API. This is available from on the wiki also. You can get it from the wiki, but I have it here. Then we have a small tool that we can use, which is available on the system, and that implements those RESTful API as well. And it has 3 modes of operation: command line, interactive, and shell. Okay, so you can read information, modify the information in the system with this application instead of going through the web portal. One of the things you can do is just dump the full configuration. Right? What is interesting here is that you can choose just one configuration. When you do a database backup, you always have all the configurations in the system. But if you use tbconfig or just the RESTful API, then you'll be able to get the JSON file of just one configuration in your system. Then you can take this JSON file, maybe exactly the same, and push it on the in the database of your SBC, or you can modify it and then push it to the configuration as SBC. Okay, so either you do an update to update the configuration you have now, or you just create a new one, and from the RESTful API you can also ask to activate a new configuration. Okay. So these are examples here. So get a specific resource. You can use tbconfig /configuration config1 nap. So you can get this resource. You can get the full configuration. So then you say tbconfig configuration config1 full config.json and -r here. Recursive, it's going to go through all the resources. Create one file with all your configuration. And actually, that's one way. I remember one customer said, "Yeah, I have 2 configurations in my system, and what's the difference between the 2?" All right. So I say, "Yeah, from the web portal, it's not easy to figure that out. However, you can do this: download config1, download config2, and do a diff between the 2, and you'll find what are the differences." Restore full configuration on a new unit. So if you've downloaded a configuration, you can take it and say, now create a new configuration with the name config2. So you create another, in this case it's going to be exactly the same copy of the configuration. You can modify a resource value. So you can go like this. Remap nap is this one. So you went in the routes, you change your main route to point to another nap. All right, so that could be something that's being done from a route server. And then if, here I just put tbconfig, but if you want to access another system, you have to put the IP of that system and the user and password of the web interface, because it's going through the web interface to access the system. If you're using HTTPS, also you need to add another parameter here. Then there is the, okay, this was the command line mode. This is the interactive mode. So then you can just start tbconfig without any parameters, right? And then you have this. So then you can go with your arrows up, down, and see the configuration of your system. All right, so you can, instead of going through the web portal, you can see it this way. This helps me sometimes because I'm looking for, how do I, maybe I want to like disable one of the nap in my system, but how do I reach it, right? So then I go here, and then I know what is the path I need to put in the command here to know how to use it. Okay? So that's one way to do that. Or you can modify it. If you just want to modify the name here, you can manually modify the name. So it's just a useful tool. But this, let's say this mode is more interesting for me in general. Okay.
Congratulations, you're making great progress. Time to move on to module 355 on SNMP by clicking in the box over here.